Welcome, you know, to another episode of the Global Latin Factor podcast, where we talk about Latino everything. Thank you so much for being here. Make sure you subscribe to the channel today. Why? Because it's important to you to subscribe, support this channel. My name is Crispin Valentin. I am the host of the podcast. Today, we have an amazing guest. If you are now struggling and you're in school, you don't know what you are because people are trying to ask for receipts because you're Latino or not Latino and you don't know where to go. This is the perfect story for you to tap in right now, listen in, and now we get into the episode. Athena, hola, ¿cómo estás? How you doing?
Hola, I'm very well. How about yourself?
Doing great. Thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate you being here. I don't know if you ever checked out an episode, but we have a segment called Preguntas al Chile. Grab explain it right now. If you have not subscribed to the channel, I don't know what you're waiting for. What do you got to lose? It's free. And you're supporting your Latinos, your fellow Latinos. So go ahead and do it today. Subscribe. Thank you so much. ¿Estás lista? Are you ready?
I think so.
Tacos o tortas?
Tacos.
Corn tortilla or flour tortilla?
Corn, definitely.
Definitely. Gorditas or pupusas?
Gorditas.
Mexican coca or jarrito? The drinks.
Jarritos.
¿Qué sabor? What flavor?
Pineapple.
Pineapple. Horchata, Jamaica, or agua de tamarindo?
Easy, horchata.
Horchata, all right. This is going to be, let's see if you can tap into your Peruvian side.
Okay.
Ceviche or lomo saltado?
Ooh, it really depends on which day. I'm going to probably say lomo, though.
Lomo? Ooh,
yeah.
It's another one. See if you remember. Pollo a la brasa or rocoto relleno?
Probably pollo a la brasa.
Salsa verde, salsa roja?
Roja.
Enchiladas or chiles rellenos?
Chile relleno.
Menudo or pozole?
Pozole.
Pozole, yes. Team pozole all day. Don't play. Veggie one for me, por favor. Valentina Tabasco or Cholula hot sauce?
Cholula.
Cholula. Churros or flan?
Churros.
Cumbia, salsa, merengue, or bachata dancing. Bachata all day?
Sure, all day.
A ver cómo. What? Yeah, I know I can get down with a little bit of salsa. The basic steps, but I can do it. No left feet over here. This was not even close to the line of questioning, but we love it because, you know, I feel like everything's possible. So with that, a conspiracy theory that you heard one time that when you heard, you're like, that sounds true. Or like, it could be true.
Well, I think it's kind of one of those like old wives' tales.
Okay.
Putting onions in your socks when you're sick.
Okay, I heard that one. I've seen it on videos.
Yeah.
Have you ever tried it? Do
no,
you know people?
I want to try it. I think it works, though.
Okay.
It sounds like it does.
Did you see a couple of videos, you'd be like, I think it works.
Yeah, it was more so like I just kind of heard about it.
Yeah.
And like I know that onions also have really good like healing properties. They have a lot of antioxidants. And so it's kind of 1 + 1 and it's like I think it adds to 2.
Okay, so is there a particular onion? You got the white onions, yellow, or purple onions?
I always imagine doing it with the white, I think my flavor that I like a little bit more is going to be the purple.
Was it purple or red?
Well,
red
people
onions.
call it red, but it's purple.
It looks
color.
purple to me.
It looks purple, so.
Unless I'm colorblind and going,
right.
like losing my color senses, but it looks purple to me.
Yeah, definitely.
Not red. Okay. When you hear the word Latino, Latina, or Latinx, what are the first things that comes to mind? No right or wrong answer, just the very first things.
I think it could mean, to me, it means endless possibilities.
Yeah, I agree with that. And do you care if you're called Latina? Do you prefer human? I don't know if there's a version of Peruvian and Mexican combination, but anything like that. Do you care for any of that?
I think at one point I did when I was still trying to learn more about my own identity and how I identify.
Right.
Because, as we know, Latinx is a relatively newer term, but I think for me, I don't really care. Yeah.
Cool. That's awesome. Do you have, let's get to the interview portion. I think you're, the way you carry yourself, being a young individual that had somewhat of challenges growing up with identity and things working around, even from your own community. I think it's very interesting to highlight that portion of young Latinos. that went through that and not forget about it, because a lot of times I have maybe a little older crowd and they have their own ways, but I don't want to miss out on the younger generation that kind of sort of have their own challenges. Okay. So do you have any interesting stories from your parents, grandparents, in regards to coming to Mexico from Peru, or from coming from Peru or coming from Mexico all the way to the U.S.? Anything like that? Anybody share any stories to you?
Yeah, a lot of it. So on my dad's side, it gets a little bit more foggy. And so, because my grandmother on my father's side, she was born here, but she was mixed. And I don't even know what she was fully mixed with, but I know for sure she was Mexican.
Cool.
And then my father on my dad's side is fully Peruvian, and he came by boat.
By boat, all the way from Peru?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm sure he came a couple other different ways, but talking to him about it is a little bit more complicated. But he came with his family, with his siblings, and they kind of started their new life here. But my grandmother on my mom's side, she came for love. And so she was actually very lucky because she also got a scholarship to come to the United States and come to school.
Wow.
Yeah, so she was very fortunate. So she came here, and she actually already knew my grandfather, who is an American man.
Americano.
Yeah, a gringo, mind you, fully white. And she already knew him from Mexico because he had went to school in Mexico, and she kind of ended up coming back to the States where he was, and they rekindled, and that's how that started.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Very neat. Very neat. Okay, so when you were young, you had different challenges. About 11 years old, you started noticing different things, right? Can you remember some of the things that you were noticing, and how did you, at so young, started kind of realizing those things?
Yeah, I think the main factor was transitioning from elementary to middle school, where in elementary I was kind of already pretty like. I think it's different. Identity is definitely viewed differently in elementary. You're not really thinking about how you are being perceived by others, and you're not really too concerned with perceiving others in an othering way whenever you're still elementary age. But middle school, you start to grow into a little bit more of your own identity. And I think that's when, like, off the bat, people automatically assumed that I was white, just based off of how I look, of course. And I think it was during that experience that I realized that, like, oh, I have white skin and I have light colored hair and I have features that make it look like I'm white. And it was then that, like, I kind of started to understand, okay, so this is a new experience for me. Because I had always grown up knowing that I was Latin. So
do you remember that day where it, like, kind of clicked, like a light bulb went out, and like, oh my goodness, I am like this and people are seeing me this way? You remember?
Well, it was probably, I mean, because I still experience it to this day. So, like, the first day is probably going to be a little bit more, like, muddled in with all the other ones especially throughout middle school. But
what are they?
Well, it's just, it's always someone from a different community, whether it's a Black community, the white community, my own community, where they just automatically assume that I'm white. And so I just remember one of the first few times was, when people would say, like, they would be like, oh, you're a white girl. And I'm like, what? But I'm not. My last name is Latin. Corrales. So, and it just always kind of got to me, because I was just like, that's weird, because I've always known myself to be Latin. And so I felt like I had to kind of like pull out, like, documents and receipts to prove that I was Latin. But yeah, that was probably my first time that I had to kind of pull out my last name and say, no, I am.
So by receipt, you mean just things that you have to kind of sort of like kind of prove that you had the Latino card?
Yeah,
like, look,
exactly.
I do this. Right, I watch this.
Right.
I eat this.
And that's so weird. Like, I'm like, if I'm telling you I'm Latin, like, that should be enough. But of course, it's more complicated.
That's interesting. I find it very interesting. So what else? Not only that, but within your own community, whenever I was listening to some of the things you sent me, I reminded, and a lot of people are reminded of the story of Selena's dad driving the bus, and how he's telling, I have to be more American than Americans, and more Mexican than Mexicans.
Right.
Kids, blah, blah, blah. So you kind of dealt with that growing up as well, right?
Yes.
Because the kids, you're having to pull receipts to show them that you're like Latina as Latina could be. And then you're your people, for whatever reason, like, and I did this to you. I call you abuelita. I don't know if it was okay for you every time, but I'm like, oh, I'm doing it too. But your own community, you found that even you had to provide receipts for them, or maybe you were not enough as far as Latina, right? How did that go for you?
It definitely felt very alienating, very ostracizing, because the place where I, grew up in, where I sought refuge in my own community, my own culture, was essentially rejecting me. And it kind of took a lot of like self-talk and like kind of understanding that just because the way that someone perceives me does not mean that that is the way that I am. And because everyone is different, everyone's perceptions of everybody can change and vary and whatnot. So I think that that was probably one of the bigger things, is that I had to realize that, wow, okay, I have to basically stand firm in what I know is true about myself, and that is my identity, that is my family, that is my history, my culture, and I'm standing on it. And no matter how like, ostracizing it may have felt at the beginning.
Okay. So was it like subtle things that they used to say to you, or was it literally verbatim certain things that made you feel or make you want to feel that way because they were saying actual things like, oh, no sabes español, or estás muy güerita, or whatever the case might be? Was there any of that?
Well, some of it actually kind of started with a little bit of like, kind of like a prove it kind of attitude, like where they would say like, oh, you're not Hispanic. Do you speak Spanish to me? And like for me growing up, because I was raised with Spanish at a young age, but my parents didn't continue speaking Spanish to me throughout my life. So they're fluent in Spanish, and I'm like semi-fluent. As soon as I'm put on the spot, all my vocabulary like goes straight out my brain. So I could probably write a little bit better. I can understand better for sure. But having a conversation, all of a sudden I get all nervous. But so they would put me on the spot to speak Spanish. They would a lot of times they would also say, well, like, like challenge me, like pop quiz me on like what I know about things.
Tu propia gente, your own people.
Yeah, exactly. And then also they would just automatically just say, oh, well, you're just a white girl. Like, and for me, that for me personally always got under my skin, because I know on the surface I am white. But that is, to me, being Latin is more vast than what it means to be white, because white is just the color.
Absolutely. When you were saying that you still to this day, I'm not like a counselor or anything, right? But it made me think of something. Like when they were saying that, and all of a sudden it put you on the spot, it kind of made you nervous. And even to this day, as a grown up, kind of sort of like when you get put like, hablo español, you not freeze, but a little bit of hesitation. Do you feel that like maybe a little bit of a trauma that you still carry on from back then?
Yeah, I think always there's always going to be a little bit, just because that's a part of my own journey. And I think until I become as fluent as I feel, like where I can get by in a conversation with other like people, then I feel like I will never be able to fully relax into that experience until I get to that point. But I think that for the most part, I can mostly fake it till I make it. Like I can understand better, and I can, get most of my point across in Spanish. So I feel like I work with what I have.
So today I was at a networking event, and I ran into this gentleman, super güerito, clear eyes. It looks like a white older gentleman. I assumed the same thing. And then later on, we were just getting in a conversation. We were talking. And then he said, because he does, he's some kind of contractor or something along those lines. So he usually goes to places and he's amongst people that speak nothing but Spanish.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, they're like, oh, ahí viene el güero, ahí viene el güero. And I thought it was a hilarious response where he said, oh, sí, ¿dónde está, dónde está? And he started looking around, and all of a sudden, they were shocked. I'm like, oh, my goodness, he speaks Spanish too. Did you have any kind of situations like that where you walk into a place, everybody assumes que no sabes español, but you understand it.
Yeah.
And they're just running their yappers. Anything like that happen to you ever?
Definitely. I think especially for me, the part that I have a little bit more difficulty in is understanding more colloquial accents and terms. So like, even though like I can tell if someone may be talking about me, I may not be able to tell exactly the context or even the intonation that they're using. But definitely that happens to me all the time.
Yeah. Whenever he was telling me, I can almost picture their face of like, oh, yeah,
right.
Que tonto soy for assuming that it is. Because
yeah,
as much as you want these days, you don't really know who knows Spanish.
Yeah.
You can't go about looks anymore.
Yeah, no.
Because again, they could just be light, or they could have just actually taken the time to learn Spanish because they know the value of you having to learn 2 languages or more in the world. Right. So whenever you were going through those battles, you were still fairly young. However, what is the first steps? I know you liked your food, your culture, all those things were real, like something that you really liked, that you enjoyed. What are the things as far as the food that you really enjoyed whenever you were growing up? There was like, you kind of reminded you that you were Latina, you like these flavors. Maybe white culture doesn't appreciate it because they don't know about it. But what did you like?
So probably I have some favorites on both sides, but probably the main one is going to be on my mother's side. My grandma's Mexican rice. She is famous for it.
Really?
Yes, and everyone, including myself, have tried to replicate it using the same recipe, and it never turns out the same. Although I will say that I've probably come the closest.
She got the touch.
You know, yeah,
She got that sazon. Man, she's got that sazon. It's kind of hard to duplicate that.
Yeah.
Right. Again, I think you're closest to it. You might have got that.
Yeah, I think I have the magic touch. I think I got it.
That's pretty cool.
But so probably that was just a favorite growing up, and it's a staple. Rice is a staple.
Absolutely,
So
for us, being
able to have it and being able to make it also is like very important. And then on my dad's side, it's probably she would make a couple of different things, but probably the one that always like to me brought it home and always felt very just like comforting was her caldo.
A caldo?
Yeah.
Which caldo specifically
Pollo,
for you?
de
Caldo de
pollo.
pollo?
Yeah.
Okay. So I remember you were saying that, but at the same time, it made me think, during that time, you really started diving into kind of learning more about cultures in general, about what is Latino, what's Latinidad for you. Do you remember that time? And what is it that you started going? Did you start going a journey of binging videos, going to places, eating food, all that stuff?
Well, definitely the beginning of my journey was somewhere around high school time. And it was actually when I had my own room at the time, because most of my life I've shared my room with my sister. So I had my own room at the time, and I was able to kind of experiment a little bit more with my own self and what I consume. And that included music and you know, naturally also dance that accompanied the music. And I felt it was very important for me to educate myself on different types of artists and different styles of music across the Spanish language and culture. And so I was obviously a lot of Daddy Yankee, just a lot of different various artists. And I would practice dancing in my room to the sound. And now I feel like, although like I know that there's like, you know, more formal ways of how to dance to what kind of music. Yeah. But for me, I think what has helped me is because I was able to experiment a little bit more and kind of give myself the natural room to like mess up, learn the beat, learning how to dance in general, but also learning how to dance to that type of music. I feel like I'm able to dance more naturally and more freely to that kind of music just based off of how it sounds, not necessarily because of the style of it. But somehow, you know, I feel like they go hand in hand. It's like when you hear the music, you can feel it in your soul and your body matches it.
Isn't it like a interesting thing, right? Whenever you hear a particular sound, it's like your body reacts to it. It's the strangest thing ever, but
I love it.
I don't see how people don't have rhythm, but I know people don't have rhythm. But it's crazy to me because I just like, you kind of hear it and you're like, you feel it.
Yeah. You have to, the important thing is you have to kind of be able to let go of you know, outsiders' approval or view of it and just feel it. Yeah. And I think that that's probably a lot of the issues with some people is that they don't relax into the music. You have to, that's essential.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a thing with people that they really do truly care about what other people think. Even though they don't pay their bills, they don't give them any money, maybe they don't even contribute to anything in their life on a daily basis, still they give them too much power and concern over what they think instead of like, this makes me happy and I like to do this and I'm going to do it because it fulfills me, not because of everybody else. So, okay. So music, dancing is one of the things that you tap in. What else did you start discovering that you want to know more about your culture, where you come from, where your parents been, the things that is related to Peruvian and Mexican culture for you?
Well, obviously food is like a center, like that's a very important thing to like work around, is being able to integrate recipes and staples into my own like daily meals.
Yeah.
But also watching different shows in Spanish, listening to different music in Spanish, being around people who also share a similar background, can also just kind of strengthen the foundation that I have in my own identity and my own understanding of my culture. But also definitely asking my ancestors, my starting with my grandparents, what it was like to experience this, what it looked like back then, going back and visiting, my home, like Mexico specific, because I haven't been to Peru yet, and it's cost too much money for it right now, at least. But being able to go to Mexico is a blessing for me, and so I love being able to go, and I feel so that much more connected to myself and my people.
When you get there, when you arrive, let's say for the first time, you went back, and people give me a hard time because I call it the motherland.
Yeah.
But let's say you go back to the motherland and you touch down. What is the first emotions and feelings that come to you whenever you're there?
Like that. And I think it's partially just because of the fact that like the breeze hits different in Mexico. Like it's just because it's so like it's just so crisp, and I don't know, the air even smells different. Like it's just, I feel like I can relax a little bit into what I feel like is like it genuinely feels like my home there. Like I feel like I'm back home. Like I know technically my home's here in Dallas, but I feel like I'm just back at the place, like back at the root of it. And it feels very reassuring.
I like that. I like that a lot. Okay. And then what else is the first few things that you go do whenever you get there? Is it the food? Is it to go to a particular place that you like to visit? And what área? ¿Qué área de México? What area of Mexico?
Guanajuato.
Yeah.
So it depends on who I'm staying with. Because I've only gone, more recently, I've only gone to like a couple of different places. I've been able to travel like a little bit more within Guanajuato itself, but this past summer I was in Irapuato, and I was with my mother's aunt. So and she is a very open-minded person, and she actually lived in America or in the US for some time, and so she kind of she's into like kind of exposing herself and trying different things. And so we got to try a bunch of different things. I got to try matcha in Mexico, which was a completely different experience.
Really?
Than here in America or in the US.
What's different about it? Tell me.
I don't know. I think it tastes a little bit more like less processed for one.
That's 100,000, a million % for sure.
And less sweet, which I actually like more because I don't like my matchas that sweet. But everywhere here in the U.S., everyone's over sweetens and over salts everything. But in Mexico, everything is like less sweet, a little less salty. But at least from my experience. But definitely, so when it comes to food, I've obviously got to try Mexican food in Mexico, but I also tried different kinds of things. Going to the mall is fun. But that was probably like probably one of the first things that I do is I just try the food. Is
there a spot that you like to go get your fruits and your first dish that you just like, I have to go there because this food is like amazing. I have to be. That's one of the reasons why I came here. Anything?
Yeah. I cannot remember what the name of it is, but I went there this past summer in Irapuato, and it was, for the life of me, I cannot remember what it's called, but they serve breakfast. Yeah. And it's basically like a breakfast buffet kind of thing. But you have to pay for the specific things that you're actually putting on your plate. But it's kind of like self-serve, and you can get like a quesadilla or gordita, and you can kind of fill it to make it to how you like it, and you can add eggs into it. And that was my first time trying huitlacoche.
Oh man!
Oh my gosh, it was amazing.
It's the best.
I know, I love
So
it.
good.
Yeah, so that was a really and we went there maybe once or twice after the first time that I went, because I told them how much I loved it. It was just so delicious, and the horchata was good. Yeah, I loved it. So that's where I would go.
Yeah, I had huitlacoche tacos here.
Really?
Yeah, salsa verde.
Yeah, me
Free
too.
plug for y'all. Salsa verde. I go over and get some of them tacos. I got like 5.
You know, I've had the ones from Salsa Verde. To me, they're not as good.
They're not as good.
But I do like the fact that they have that option here in Texas.
That's not as good.
Yeah.
But
it's good enough.
It's a hand's reach. I can grab it.
Right. If it comes close enough.
It's close enough that I can, like, I'm okay with it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Okay. So the food, business and places. Have you had any? Because Peruvian cuisine is like, top notch.
Yeah.
When you started exploring about that particular food, did you realize how high scale Peruvian food is, or did you have no idea there's like it's really top tier food? It's so good. My brother put me on some of the cuisine, and I'm like, this is pretty good.
Now
stuff.
you can't look back.
It's true. It's true. Any of that exploring any videos, any things like that you went for that particular cuisine, Peruvian?
That one we I mean, because my grandmother, she used to make some stuff, and it was more so growing up for my father that she would make stuff for him, like tallarines verdes, papas a la huacaína, that. But most of the stuff that we'd have to like go to a restaurant, or sometimes my dad would make it. But I think to get like more immediate exposure to options and whatnot, we'd go to restaurants, and that was where we got to try stuff. But definitely, like, I think I personally love Peruvian food, and I think my journey into Peruvian food kind of had hit a stopping point, and then I had to start back up because because I'm vegetarian, and so when I became vegetarian, I couldn't eat most of the dishes. But there's one place in Richardson that I actually go to, and they serve tofu saltado.
Put me on. Where is it at? Because I got to be there. Because remember, I'm plant-based too.
Oh, yeah. So it's called Tineo, and it's in Richardson.
Okay, go and pause this. We're going to go grab some food. I'm just kidding.
Okay.
Hold up.
It is so good. And their ceviche is, oh my gosh, it's amazing. Do you eat ceviche?
I do, but I make my own with, what do I make mine with? Oh, cauliflower.
Oh, okay.
So I make it like a cauliflower type of ceviche.
Okay.
Let it marinate. Do the same toppings on it, and man, it's so refreshing.
I know. So that's like I don't really eat a lot of fish, hardly ever, but I do make the exception whenever I go to Tineo, because their ceviche is just, it's out of this world.
Yeah. So for me is the what I say earlier? I forgot it.
The lomo saltado?
The cabbage.
Oh, yeah. The
not cabbage, cauliflower, but I blench it for a second.
Okay, yeah.
And then
to get
cool
the texture.
Cut it real fine, and let it sit in the line for a little while. Okay. But to me, that thing is like so good.
Oh, yeah.
I just get down with some ceviche.
Yeah.
It's not like ceviche. It's so
but
good.
it's definitely like a good substitute. Yeah.
Is that your to-go spot for ceviche for you?
Yes.
Like whenever you're making an exception for it?
Well, there's another place in Oak Cliff. In fact, my sister put me on.
That's my hood.
Yeah. It's I think it's a truck. He's out of a truck, and he makes aguachiles, but the green one is the one that I like.
Yeah.
That one is pretty good. It depends, because that's Mexican. That's Mexican ceviche. Mexican ceviche is different than Peruvian ceviche.
Tell me the differences.
Well, I notice with Mexican ceviche, they do a little bit more like fruits and veggies in the ceviche. Like the one at Tineo, they put like sweet potato, and then you've got hominy, and then you've got like corn nuts.
Wow.
And with the like the strips of the ceviche, and they also cut it differently. And then they also put like fresh red onion or a purple onion, whatever. And that taste is very good as is. And then for Mexico, at least the one that I try, they put like cucumbers, It's also onions as well, limes,
cilantro,
cilantro.
jitomate.
Yeah, and that's a little bit different. And I've also had some that have pineapple in it too, and that's really good.
Some make it to where, of course, the fish, you cook it with the lime, you let it sit for a long time, and then you cut it up in little squares usually, and then you add all the other stuff along with. I put jicama on mine, but I seen jicama,
really?
piña.
Okay, yeah, piña is good.
Mango. I seen all kinds of stuff that they put on it. So I think those are extra. The basics is the one with just, your fish with the cilantro, cebolla, limon, let it cook with it, and some picantes, serrano peppers usually cut up. Yeah. Eat it with a tostada. Some people like a tostada, put mayonnaise on it, and then put the thing on it. Some people don't. So I don't know. Have you ever had it? Either one?
Tostada?
A tostada with mayonnaise on top.
Ew.
Yes.
I hate mayonnaise.
Okay, the mayonnaise one is the one you don't like. But there's people, danger. Hey, please, I'm respecting your palate. But I'm saying some people.
My bad.
No, you're good. But some people like putting it with the mayonnaise on the tostada with some ceviche.
Different.
It's different. But I'm like, And before I changed my diet, I ate one. And it was like, it's pretty good. Not bad. Okay. I kind of like the mayonnaise. I do like the mayonnaise.
I hate mayonnaise so much. Sour cream I like.
Okay.
But mayonnaise, it grosses me out just because I think it's because I used to work in a place where we had this big old jar of mayonnaise and you can see how it like coagulates. and because they make it with like eggs, like raw eggs. Yeah. And that to me, it just always turned me off. And like if it's in like a sandwich and it's like chipotle mayo maybe, like, and I can't really taste it. Okay, that's not that bad. But if I know it's in there and I see it and it's white, I'm immediately turned off.
That's true. Don't get offended by your tostadas de ceviche with mayonnaise. We're just saying. Okay, let's touch back a little bit on the language part. Like, Brie and I were talking about no sabo kids.
Yeah.
Like, no sabo in general. Yeah. What do you think about that term? And in general, that the people actually embrace kind of that. I always blame the parents, but I want to get your take on it.
Yeah. I feel like it kind of the no sabo like term. It kind of started as like maybe in like a little messed up way, like a term of endearment, kind of. But it definitely there is still that doesn't mean that there isn't pain attached to it because it's once again one of those othering comments and othering like ideas that like, oh, you don't know the language but you should know. I feel like that's not really fair, but I do also blame the parents. But that also does not mean that at a certain point that people, once they reach a certain age, that they can't start to teach themselves or expose themselves a little bit more. Yeah. Like for me, I would definitely say that my Spanish is limited. It's not where I want it to be, not where it could be for sure. But I do still try and do things on like in my daily life to try and expand my knowledge and expand my vocabulary. And so, like you may not know everything, but who does? I
like your take on it. It's such a weird thing because I think it's still a little bit belittling, offensive towards the kid because it's really not their fault. And I know they're trying to be cool about it and take it like, it was not my fault because it's not their parents' fault. But sometimes depending on where they live, where they grew up. So a lot of parents back in the days, and sometimes maybe probably till this day, they don't allow their kids to learn the language for the same reason they don't want to be different whenever they go to wherever school they go.
Exactly, with the accent.
Like there's certain towns, even in Texas, that you just don't want to be sounding different. And that's the reason why you just hurry up and learn English and just don't speak anything else. So it's not like it's their fault. They're trying to, and we can't kind of blame the parents because they're trying to do it as protective, right?
Yeah, I get it.
They want to protect the kid, make sure they don't look different, but at the same time, it's a little bit of disservice because, knowing two languages, especially here in Texas, it takes you further for the most part. Maybe not so much these days, but it does more for you to learn two languages. So. Yeah, I can kind of see it both ways, but I just don't like the term. So it's just not my thing. And I know they even got games for it and they make fun of it and this and that, and it's cool, but I'm like, man, I wish, I guess maybe I'm judging because I don't know their background and the way they grew up, but I guess it'll be more of like, man, I wish that helped them push them forward to learn more Spanish or be more, or like say, you know what? I'm denouncing Spanish. I'm not even gonna learn it. I'm not even wasting my time. English is what it is, and that's what it is. I just didn't learn it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. I can definitely agree with that. I feel like it probably stems from a place of like protection and you know, kids once they reach a certain age, they can't help if you know that their knowledge doesn't match other kids their age.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely feel like that's a place where our own community we need to kind of like step up a little bit and step differently because
for sure
that's important to keep in mind.
Absolutely. Okay, so you had a particular way of identifying with the word love or just being learning about love in general, right? Because of the way that things happen for you. Do you care to expand on that as far as how you much appreciate the word itself or just the feeling of it?
I think love is a very, very just vast concept and experience. And I think also it can be complicated sometimes. But also it in and of itself, it's a very simple feeling, right. I think. We as humans, we complicate it, but I think when you know that you love something, it's kind of just undeniable. Someone or something, it's undeniable. And I think love is kind of one of those things that brings me back down to earth. What, in a weird way, it broadens my spirituality, but it also brings me back down to earth. That like there is still something here for me, even if it's just myself. Because you have to love yourself.
I have a theory, because I have all kinds of theories and ideas that I feel like makes sense to me, right? Such as love being an evolutionary step. Because if you have a man and a woman and that part of them, they have a kid, but that part of that love that pushes you even further to do better for this kid because of this feeling that you have to be able to do everything that you possibly can for him and her to keep them alive long enough so they can be they can actually just work for themselves and do their thing. And then, of course, that's just the reason why it came about. That's just my crazy thought. I was driving one time. I'd just be like, what if love was like an evolutionary thing? Because if you think about it, all the animals, they kind of need it, right? But us, if there's not any other ties, a tie to the kid itself and the whole way of raising the kid, then probably they would not even care about the kid or the relationship to keep moving forward. Just my crazy idea. So what are your thoughts?
I think that
it's okay if you go against me.
Yeah,
that's all good. I'm not gonna take it offensive. I just thought it was one time. It's like,
no,
maybe I want something.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. I think that but I do think that it is it varies because you know sometimes kids can be. I'll say kids can be raised. Kids are very resilient, and parents have to be. But especially when it comes to raising. Because we don't know how kids can come into this world, you know. Sometimes they can come in through trauma, through violence, but they persist because of love. Yeah. And I do think that is an important thing, and I think that is actually that it's literally life changing for me, and to be able to view it, but to be able to understand that happens, because that does happen. It is because of love that we are able to persist. Everyone needs love in some way. Everyone needs affection. Everyone needs to feel like they're not alone in this world. We as social creatures, we need that to survive. Yeah. I mean, babies, I can't remember. I feel like there are studies done, where they did a terrible study. Where they put kids that didn't give them any affection, and the kids that gave them affection, and the kids didn't get affection died, and the ones they did, they lived. Exactly. And it's just the touch. Yep. That's why the body touch is super important immediately. When all those things are, essential. Whether we understand it or not, they're very essential and proven by science. Yes. I mean, some people don't understand or care for science, but I'm just saying, science is science. So. I love science, but I'm a science girly. But yes, that's a very profound experiment, and definitely the ethics on that were a little shaky, a lot shaky. But I think it definitely proves something to us that we as social creatures, we need We need touch and we need love to live.
And that makes me think about like we take some certain things and make them so trendy because everybody or somebody that has some authority or whatever, or somebody that's like a celebrity said it, and all of a sudden we just take those and just make it our own, like introvert, extrovert, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if we're really affectionate and we need that to be able to even have fulfillment, where the extrovert thing comes from. Like, so maybe you just at one moment you just want to be alone, and that's okay because everybody, I just don't want to be around people sometimes. I want to be on my own. But then a lot of times I want to be like today, the networking event, I felt like I was right. Like, hey, what's up? How you doing? So I want to be able to do that. You know, it's not the same affectionate touch, but at the same time it's connection with another human being. So I don't know if the extrovert, introvert is a thing, and I get it, but I think sometimes I feel like it's a trendy thing because somebody said it, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, I gotta identify with this because that's kind of sort of aligns with the way that I am, kind of like zodiac signs.
Yeah, yeah. I think being an introvert and extrovert, I think it's definitely a lot more. I don't know. I feel like it's a little bit more complex than maybe what people let on a little bit.
Expand on that.
Well, I feel like. And also, okay, because being an introvert and an extrovert, to my understanding, it's the social aspect.
Yeah.
And because you can be an extrovert with boundaries. In fact, I encourage you to be an extrovert with boundaries. Physical boundaries is different because that is per person, what every person wants, especially. But I think that for me, I feel like I'm an introvert, but I'm not quiet. I'm not shy, but I would consider myself an introvert because I need space and time to recharge, and I need space and time to just kind of isolate myself a little bit to kind of get back into me.
Gotcha.
And so that looks like me also having boundaries, and sometimes it looks like me not talking to people, me just being alone, but that does not mean that I don't crave, conversations.
Yeah.
On a daily basis, most times. Crave friendship and companionship. And I definitely feel like I feel like it's a little bit more like, I don't know. I feel like some people, maybe they don't know, maybe they think that they're one way, but maybe they act differently. And I feel like it's just, there's layers to it, I feel like.
Cool. Disprove me. I'll use it for clickbait. I'm just kidding. Nah, it's all good. I mean, again, hey, all of us have our own takes of it, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just like things contradict each other, but you're right, it's deeper than that. No, deeper than it's just I'm an expert and that's what it is. And you haven't even explored it. That's really what it is. You know what I mean? Or other things. So cool. Okay. So when you said love saved you, or love is something that you found, did you remember the time and how did it feel for you at that moment, the time that you feel that's what happened?
Well, love is such a big thing. And I mean, I felt love from my dog, who actually recently passed away in May, but
very sorry for this.
Thank you. But she was a good example. She taught me a lot about what it looked like to love and care and be gentle for a soul. And that was essential to my journey. But I mean, I experienced love for animals. I've always loved every single animal. Animals are very special to me. I love my friends and my family, no matter how complicated and under my skin they may get. But when it comes to romance, which I'm not sure if that's how you're asking.
However you feel like for you, it's something that you realized that's something that was life-changing for you.
Yeah.
I think it was more life-changing, you said.
Yeah, I think is more so because with family, it's kind of like you're born into it. Like, of course, we're going to love you. Like, of course. With animals, of course, they're going to love me too. But of course, I'm going to love them because they need it to survive. I think that they definitely remind me that like how simple and childlike we as adults can be is kind of looking at things from the perspective of like an animal. But I think when it comes to romance, that's when things get a lot more complicated. And I think probably, I think it was probably like around middle to high school that I started to realize, oh wow, love hurts. I don't feel like it should, but I don't, I'll say this. It's not fair to use the word should because it implies an expectation. So I think when it comes to love, I believe that like we don't really know what to expect. And I feel like if you're truly acting in the way that love can be, you're treating it like a new experience. Like, that's the idea of it. To be able to be vulnerable with someone, a new person, again, in a similar way that you were with the last person, or even with that you are with yourself, or maybe you're still learning how to do it with yourself. Like, that's essential. And it's very scary. But I think that's where it kind of gets to be a little bit more like, sometimes things are a little bit more complicated than just saying I love you, you know? There's still pain attached to it.
Do you think figuring who you are fully to be able to identify the way that you feel like you are as a person, that later on when you go into another relationship, those changes differ because you own self kind of know you're a little bit different. Mm-hmm. And you don't try to carry whatever relationship you had previously before that didn't go well and try to open up to all the other stuff, trust and all that. But this time, you know yourself a little bit better, so you come at it with a different approach. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like that has happened to you or not necessarily?
Yeah. I think I try to keep my heart and my mind open every single time that I am with someone new, or even if I'm alone. And I feel like that experience has definitely shaped because I feel like it's important that I embody love, and that I am the example of the love that I want. I am the example of that. And so I feel like for me, discovering love at a young age and making mistakes and getting hurt and taking time to get back center into myself, it definitely taught me a lot about boundaries. Yeah. It taught me a lot about what I deserve. It taught me a lot about how there's so much more to love than, like I said, just saying I love you, or just the feeling of it. There's a lot more attached to it. There's patience, there's empathy, there's kindness, there's faith, there is trust. All of these things are essential to living a life of love. You have to be able to have those. And I'm not saying that I do, because I'm not a perfect person, but to be able to try and make the effort and make the conscious effort to remember, hey, I'm being very impatient right now, and that's not the best example of how I can be a loving person. And yeah.
Do you think people have wild expectations, crazy expectation, unattainable expectations because of outside influences, TV, social media, and everything else when it comes to love in general? And we feel like we have certain expectations that need to happen, but when, let's say, there's so much things that go with it that when you go into a relationship, a new one, you all of a sudden is like, oh, this is not what I expected. This is not what they sold to me on TV. Do you think there's a lot of that for people? Yeah,
there's definitely a lot of like romanticizing like pain and just like this, I don't know, movies they have to fit within like a 2-hour time limit. Yeah, like I'll say like even like The Notebook. I don't know if you've ever watched that movie, but it's a very popular like movie, especially amongst women, that basically this guy waits for her and does all these things in the hopes that maybe she'll come back, and eventually she does. And anyway, but it's very unrealistic. Like, it's the reality of it is people move on. The reality of it is people don't work out. And it's, at the end of the day, it's just a movie, or it's just a book. And some people believe in like happily ever after, and some people feel like, well, maybe it isn't that simple. And the way that I look at it is that they're like silver linings, yes, but I always feel like there's a good and bad to everything. Yeah. All the good things and all the bad things have both good and bad. And so I think it's just a matter of just kind of like being able to like set yourself back into reality of like, hey, this sucks, but I do know this on the positive side.
Yeah. And no knock on The Notebook. It's not that I've never watched it before, or I'm not into that. I'm not this macho Mexicano guy. I like other movies, romantic movies, that I think is pretty cool. The whole concept of it, and the way everything's by design. The books, the movies, and all that, they have a structure for it to be able to be as addictive for you to read the next book and the next chapter to the next movie.
Exactly.
So yeah, of course, if you're basing that off of, especially being young, that you see this, that you feel like it's reality, and when you start growing up, it's like, oh, it's not like that. But there's a way more complicated than that. But I feel like whenever you know yourself, and not expectations, but you know that, like you said, love is not this toxic thing that people talk about. It's just like, it makes me like feel yucky, because I don't want to feel that. If I was to feel love for somebody, I don't want to go through that things. I want to be flow the way it should naturally, without no already made up idea of me the way that I want it and manipulate it in my way, because I know a person's always going to be a person. As much as I want to change them for my sake, they're never going to be. They're always going to be who they are, because they have a history. So I got to be able to be okay with knowing that part. But I still want to be able to flow pretty well with my significant other.
Of course.
You know? So in addition to what you share right now, what are some of the most important lessons that you think you learned about love?
Yeah. Probably the biggest one, and I'm still trying to get a handle on it, but probably the biggest one is that no matter how much I give my all and love someone, does not mean that they will be able to return it, especially as intensely as I do, because I would consider myself a very I love hard. And so for me, that you know, I know that I'm willing to do a lot of different things to make a relationship work. And in the past, that has hurt me, because that meant that I was accepting crap from people. And I shouldn't, because I deserve more. But as I got older and I realized, okay, I deserve more. I can give myself better. So if I can give myself better, then other people can definitely give me better. I started expecting more. I started having more boundaries. I started communicating better. But that does not mean that that all that I give and all that I do to make something work, that means that someone else is capable of doing that. And it also doesn't mean that they don't love me, because everyone loves differently. And just because they don't love me in the way that I do for them, or in the way that I would like for myself, does not mean that they don't love me in their own way. Yeah.
I heard this gentleman that I like to listen to often, not so much, but before, just in the journey of discovering. And he was talking about love and the whole concept of love, right? And the whole concept of love is just the feeling itself feels good for you. I mean, it's beautiful whenever the other people are able to reciprocate, but if it's not, like, you're still feeling good because you are able to feel this thing for them. Like, everything looks freaking perfect. The lights are shinier, the colors are brighter, everything feels amazing, but it's your own feeling and emotions that you like it. And it's for you to feel that way. For everybody, maybe not the significant doesn't return it, and of course it hurts, but at the same time you still feeling it. You're under control of, maybe not so much as falling in love for that person, but the feeling itself, you enjoy it. It's yours to feel. You like it. You love feeling this way because it feels great. But it's better whenever somebody else answers back with the same way, but it's not. You're still feeling good about it. You're still feeling great because it's just for you to feel. For everybody and whatever person you find for you. Yeah. What is what other lesson do you think you feel about love? We get into love here. We're talking about who's some love guru out there. What we get into.
Let me get my rose quartz crystals.
I got them here, by the way.
Another lesson you said?
Yes.
So definitely, I know I said boundaries was a big one. I think probably one of the biggest one is, and this is the one that I struggle with myself. First off, okay, I'll say this. This is not the one that I struggle with, but I mean, I think everyone does a little bit, is in order to be able to love someone else, you have to be able to love yourself first. And it's kind of like the idea of, like, whenever they say you can't pour from an empty cup. Yeah, you have to be able to have your own cup full first before you can extend that part of you. And I feel like that's something that I feel like through my observations, through my own experience, being a human, but also being a human who has been in relationships, is that I notice a lot of people, they overextend themselves, and in ways maybe that they were not ready for, or maybe that they didn't realize that they weren't capable of sustaining, and then they realize on the back end, oh, this isn't gonna work out for me.
Yeah.
That's something that was definitely one of those hard fought lessons that I had to learn, and I still am working on it every single day, especially right now. That I have to be able to have the foundation of myself, and my own understanding of myself, my own identity, I have to be able to look in the mirror and be okay with who I see. And that means that I have to, that the choices that I make and the values that I show have to align with what I believe and what I seek out. And that's probably the main big lesson that I am still learning, is that how to embody love. And that is, it's very difficult. I'm actually, I used to go to Al-Anon meetings, and I just started back up because
what is that?
It's Alcoholics Anonymous. So it's oftentimes like people who come from alcoholic families, which mine is. They go to meetings to kind of, it's basically like group therapy, but they talk about, like spirituality and how to kind of hold your own through the process through the painful process of having a loved one who has an addiction to alcohol. And for me, that helps me a lot, to just kind of like have a sense of peace and kind of a much broader understanding of empathy. And for me, every single time that I come back from my Al-Anon meetings, I'm so quiet. I'm very quiet. I'm very at peace with the world and the decisions that I make, because I feel better about myself and I feel more positive moving forward. And for me, that helps immensely in my journey to embody love.
Okay, let's segue off of that, because Dita likes that word, segue into that. I didn't know if I wanted to touch on it, but I really want to touch on it just because you mentioned it, not to mention my own battles with alcohol. Is coming from a house that experienced that for you. When did you realize that some of those things that were happening at the house, it's just not like everybody, it's not like a normal thing, right? Even though it's normality for you because the experience that happened with alcohol abuse and all that, it's not really like a normal thing. So, it scars you to the rest of your life. So when did you start deciding to, maybe give up alcohol, maybe explore how you can grow out of it and have empathy for anybody that's struggling with alcohol, especially a loved one?
That's a pretty big one, because I'm still figuring that out. I have alcoholism on both sides of my family. Mainly on my mom's side, it was mainly her dad that was like a raging alcoholic, and he, like the last 20 years of his life, I think he got sober. He's no longer with us, so I can't really ask him about that. He died when I was 2, so I didn't really know him. But on my dad's side, we've got my grandfather, so his dad, and my father. So it is very close to home. He still struggles with it. And I think, it's a painful experience having to see how his own choices affect him on a daily basis, but also affect his family, because we all still live together. It complicates a lot of things, and it definitely muddies a lot of things, because you want to empathize with them, and but you also know that they're choosing this lifestyle, but you also know that it's an illness.
Yeah. It's
an addiction. Your body has now become reliant on this chemical. And it's I don't know. I still, it's a lot. It's definitely a lot. But the thing is I can't change anybody. The only thing that I can do, that I am capable of, is I can inspire change while myself I change.
Yeah.
And so for me, although I have a lot of, complicated feelings, mixed feelings about my own upbringing, and my father being an alcoholic, who he still does not realize that that's what he is yet, is I can instill things, principles, and values into my life that help me cope with it, and maybe one day will help him.
Yeah.
And so that's why I personally go to the Al-Anon meetings, and I practice working the steps, because that's all that I can do. Is I can read my books, I can talk about it in group therapy, basically, and work the steps. And for me, I also have to have some faith in the process that I cannot change anybody, and things may not change, but I will change.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what they say, yeah, if you want to be the change in the world, start with you.
Yeah, exactly.
When you were talking, I feel like I was talking to myself, because everything that you say, I have felt, experienced, thought about, frustrated about, and everything else. And like, why this, why that, what somebody that I see so strong is not able to see that. And doing this entire time of having those experiences, it makes me realize how much I learned about myself, how patient I can be about myself, how much love I can pour for somebody else, how much even at a moment of frustration driving to wherever they're at, I'm mad that they don't have, like, maybe even to the point to, in my mind, calling them cowards, to not realizing that it is an illness as much as I want to flip it and reverse it, that it's not, that it is that, and they have the willpower. Unfortunately, those things are real, and it's in our community, our Hispanic Mexican community is a huge deal. And the crazy thing is, there's not a lot of resources for people to be able to find counseling and different things. It's very limited. And then sometimes, just as family, we're like, va a estar bien, or a rato se le pasa type of situation, and it's not. And it's not, because otherwise, before you know it, he passed away. How many, I'm sure you might know somebody, but they died of alcoholism for the same reason that we just didn't want to address the situation, because they're bothersome, because we don't rather just waste that energy on whatever the case might be. We'd just rather not go find the resources and just let him be, and then just let him die. And that's sad.
Yeah, that's incredibly sad.
So for me, of that journey of that, including me myself giving alcohol for the same reason, because I don't, just like I gave meat away of a sense of disgust, an epiphany of just like, ugh, this is freaking gross. Whenever I had a loved one that had the same situation, I'm seeing it, I'm looking at this freaking this beverage, and it's like, you're fucking disgusting. Yeah. You're disgusting, because you have put my family through so much crap that I'm not going to allow you. I'm going to be the change. I'm going to start saying it, and y'all need to slow down. We need to change now, because otherwise we have more and more of the same crap, and enough is enough. And it's not going to be me.
Yeah. I did want to add something in there, because this is something that I feel like our community struggles with, is the mental health aspect. And I feel like, it's still very deeply ingrained. And I think that that's part of the reason why my father still has not sought out help, because it's so deeply ingrained that you don't need it. You don't need to talk to a doctor about it. Like, who needs doctors? My dad doesn't even see a primary physician, like, to just get a wellness checkup on a yearly basis. He doesn't even do that. He doesn't believe in it. And I feel like it's really sad, because I know that that's also something in our communities. We don't, maybe we check in, we're like, oh, are you happy? Blah, blah, blah. But when it comes to being sad and depressed and experiencing anxiety and battling with addiction, that's sometimes things that our own family can't help us with.
Like,
we don't have the resources.
Exactly.
We don't want to talk about it. So we just ignore it, or we shun them, or we accept them just as they are, but don't give them any resources to help. And sometimes it doesn't work out. Hopefully it does, though.
I mean, fortunately for you, you're taking the right steps to seeking and seeing some of this thing. Same thing for me. Like, I don't want to be that curse moving forward.
Oh yeah.
That's why I decided, like, to see a counselor, start addressing some of the things that I have to deal with.
Yeah.
And even being Mexican, being a man, being a veteran, being all that stuff, it's out of it's like, I've done so much work for myself, for me to explore, to learn, self-help, that I can only do so much for anymore, that I'm at a stop. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go to grow anymore. I've reached a max to where I can only do so many affirmation videos that can't take me so much. And then, I decided like I need to learn something. I need to see somebody to be able to kind of ask the right questions based on what it is to be able to help me out, whether I be sad or whatever the case might be. I just know that I need to address in order for me to be a more productive human, more of a somebody that breaks barriers in that regard, that is not like a stigma. It's not a negative stigma, that it's okay to get help and be all right, even as a man, to be able to be there and just be vulnerable enough to open up to that person so you can heal. Because otherwise, how is it going to happen?
Exactly.
If you don't even take the initial steps to do that, Okay. We're running short on time, but I think we had a great conversation. Thank you so much for everything that you contributed to the podcast and your story. I think it's amazing. I don't think I ever met somebody that's Peruvian and Mexican, at least few generations. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I won't call you Juanita.
No, you can. It's okay. It's okay.
So what, for you, like, what do you want somebody that's kind of going through the same thing growing up right now at this moment in time, might be young, that can help them out as they feeling like they're outcasts, they're feeling outsiders because they're going through the same motion. They don't know if, like, they're Latinos, they know, but they're getting this back and forth from both sides. What is the best words that you can tell them of encouragement for them?
Definitely stand in your ground. Stand firmly in who you are and know that the choices that you make, know that you have to be okay at the end of the day with the choices that you make and the decisions that you make mentally and physically. That's probably the most important advice that I could give, because at the end of the day, people are always going to think what they want and say what they want. But as long as you know who you are and you stand true and firm in your ground, they can't shake you.
If you deal with anybody and they don't pay your bills, you don't talk to them every day, they don't really contribute to your life, what do you care what they say?
Exactly.
They're nobody's to you sometimes. It's just irrelevant. They might be somebody to somebody, but to you, for be able to give them that power, that authority over you to move you, it's like, what for? You can be free as you want to.
Yeah. There's a saying that I like, and it says, I don't know who it's by, it might be a proverb, but people who matter don't mind, and the people who mind don't matter.
Ain't that true? Ain't that the truth? Okay. When you were driving over here, I know this is your first time doing a podcast,
yes.
right?
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. You did great, by the way.
Thank you. I was nervous.
But I'm really good at,
yeah,
just making sure we're good to go.
Yeah.
When you were driving over here, was there anything like, man, I hope he does ask me this question. I hope he does touch up on this subject because I really want to say something. Was there anything in mind that you had at all?
Honestly, I feel like you brought up all the things that I felt were important to what I wanted to talk about. I was mainly rehearsing the questions, like the answers to the questions in the car, just to kind of get myself, but I didn't want to over rehearse because sometimes I feel like I overthink things.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want to, like overdo it in my head. But I feel like everything that we talked about were things that I wanted to communicate to the world.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. I do a great job, by the way. She gives me other questions. I just ask them. I'm just an instrument here. I mean, I don't know if you want to do any of your social media or anything like that. If you want to, that's fine. If you don't want to, it's up to you.
Yeah.
Social media, if anybody wants to engage, has a question for you about being Latino, Latinidad in general, your experience, anything? No?
Yeah, sure. My Instagram is Athena, ATHENA _Alexis, ALEXIS. Right now it's currently deactivated, but it's just a temporary thing. I just need to escape social media for like a little bit, and I'll revisit.
You need a break too. Get out social media. Go watch YouTube. Stay on YouTube.
Go outside. Touch grass.
Go outside. Walk barefooted. Go hug a tree.
Yeah, grounding. Yeah.
Go hug a tree. If you're feeling sad. You have any saludos? Any shout outs? Anything like that?
Shout out to my cousin for driving with me and asking me the questions while I'm driving so I can answer them, and for also being here and accompanying me. Shout out to my family for being here for me and also giving me a story to talk about. Yeah, And shout out to God, honestly, because I wouldn't be here without my spirituality.
Awesome. As a young person, what is an important lesson that you learned going through the things about whether you're Latina or not that you would tell your younger self that would help somebody else out? What would that be? First person that ever brought a straw too, by the way. Yeah, welcome to bring your own straws.
And it's metal, so it won't kill the turtles.
Yeah.
So basically, what would I tell myself? My
At that time
version?
when you were there, your younger version, what would you tell them when they're going through all the turmoil, all the identity kind of, I guess you could say kind of crisis of like this and that, and everybody's pulling you different directions, and you kind of sort of want to like, I'm this, why do I have to prove myself? What kind of lessons do you think you picked from that? You heard it first.
Sorry, I don't know if I can cuss, but yeah.
We try to keep it family oriented.
Sorry, my bad.
Every
my
so
bad.
often we drop an F-bomb.
My bad.
No, it's an F-bomb.
Yeah, probably my advice would just be like, who cares what they say? Like, you are awesome. Like, you are gonna be great. You just need some time to develop. But you got it. Just who cares what they say? Who cares what they think? You stand strong. That's exactly what I would say.
Love it. Same gentleman that I like to listen sometimes. I say something along those lines during the day, the week. I'm not immortal. I am mortal, and I will die one day. Not to scare me, terrify me, frighten me, or anything like that, or wishing nothing upon me. But it's a reality of life, right? It happens every day. With that, it does help me hurry up, do stuff, get involved in stuff, get things completed, get done. I wish you a long, long, prosperous life. After everything's said and done, what do you want people to think and feel about your life?
I want them to feel like I loved them and like I paid attention and like I did what I could to be the best person and to leave the best memory. Maybe not the best memory, but the that's a good question. That wasn't on the list. No, I'm kidding.
It was not on the list.
I'm kidding.
Was not. It's improv. When I first asked myself that question, I started crying.
Really?
Because I didn't know how to answer it, and I was like, "What would I want? Like, what would I want to do? Like, really, do really care if anybody thinks? I mean, after a few thousand years, they're gonna who cares, right?
You're right.
So, and he made me realize, like, I just want everybody to think for me that I'm just a happy-go-lucky guy, positive as possible. I always left a mark whenever you talk to me. That all of a sudden, like for whatever reason, whenever you talk to me, you're better off.
Yeah.
You know, and I know it's a big responsibility, but I want to carry myself in that manner. And of course, I'm a perfect human, by the way. But I'm saying, even though we carry ourselves throughout the day with the best intentions, sometimes, you know, you just got those days off that you don't want it to. So for anybody that I ever did that, my apologies. For everybody else, I just want you to remember that you saw me with a smile all the time. And this guy was after what he wanted, and he got it done no matter what. And he left this legacy that's probably going to outlive me. And here it is, which is the global life factor for me.
Yeah. I think that's beautiful. I think for me, probably it would be that, you know, that I am an imperfect human, but I did try to make a difference in my life and in the life around me. And I tried to love.
I think you are doing it. I feel funny about the word try, because you actually are executing the things, right? You're giving it your best effort for what you know right now, and moving forward to knowing even more.
Yeah.
So that itself is a magnificent thing. If you never heard it, I think it's great.
Thank you.
Because you are doing it.
Thank you.
I always feel like when my artist or anybody comes in here and I'm trying, like, bro, you're doing it. Like, you're executing. Like, I can't do what you're doing. You're actually doing it.
Well, it's a process.
Yeah,
you know, like every single day I have to wake up and try.
Yeah.
But then when I go to sleep, I can say, okay, I did it. And now tomorrow I got to do it again.
Give it a go.
Yeah.
Give it a go. But the crazy thing is, like, I woke up one time from the same gentleman I heard, like, before you wake up, you open your eyes, thousands of people died.
Yeah.
You're open. You're alive.
Yeah.
And then you see your phone or whatever. Don't touch your phone immediately, but 30 minutes after an hour, like, oh, I have no messages for anybody that's not here. Everybody's okay with my family. Man, what another blessing, you know? So you all got to open your eyes, and your loved ones that you cherish the most are, okay, what a freaking magnificent day just to start off your day immediately.
Yeah.
And then everything else is just whatever.
Yeah.
Like when I was in the military, I couldn't have a bad day. If people trip out whenever I tell them I can't have a bad day. I'm not allowed to have a bad day, because if I'm in the military in country, if I have a bad day, that could mean a lot of consequences. I could literally die. I could be missing a limb. I could be, one of my buddies could be gone. All those things, right? So I'm not allowed to have a bad day, because that can happen. I have challenging days these days, of course, because everybody has to grow all the time. It's not perfect, but again, it's whatever I make out of it. It's not whatever the day brings upon me. It's just going to make me stronger. The lesson about love itself that you talked about, after every break, heartbreak, everything else, man, how much lessons did you learn to grow after you overcome, you know? After the mourning of their relationship or whatever, I didn't even know what was the word, but y'all ladies have a way different vocabulary than us, gentlemen. But after you mourn the relationship and you start thinking about it and you start processing all those things, oh my goodness, how much more you learned, how much better you are. Just knowing yourself, all that stuff, right? And again, thank you so much for being here. I wanted to get your perspective as far as somebody that's young going through those things, because I know you're not alone as far as people going through that motion, going through that thing in school right now, wherever they're at, trying to figure out what they are or why people telling them to prove this and that, and they're frustrated. Like, why are you telling me this? I know this is who I am, right? So I think it's a beautiful perspective for you telling me. And without a shadow of doubt, Athena, you are a global Latin Factor. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
This was another episode of the Global Latin Factor podcast. Remember to subscribe to the channel, because why? It's free, and again, what you got to lose? And remember, we are just like you. We are people. We are the spice in this melting pot that it is the world. Till next time, bus.